merchant seaman before I joined, or rather was persuaded to join the Navy. They do things differently here on Navy ships. I knew it as we readied to leave harbour for the first time. Up went the cry, "All hands make sail!" And instantly, the shrouds on either side were filled with men like swarming bees. And between them and certain destruction was a curved, swinging loose rope on which they stick their feet. This was all that held them from plunging into the sea or crashing to mummy on deck. Strange as it is, there's not an atom of danger in this, and I never saw an accidental fall from a ship's yards in my life. All was silent, for all was obedience to a sure design. It was precision, exactness, and familiarity. Let fall! Sheet home! Haul aboard! Hoist away! Ship the capstan's bars! Man the cat and fish! Odd things there are on a ship. But how grand the ship did look when her sails were loosed, and she moved along at the pilot's word, leaving houses, towns, ship and trees slipping backward. I was in the Navy now, but I didn't fight a battle until Trafalgar, and may never fight one like it again.
Well, after beating about the Channel for some time, we were ordered to proceed along the Spanish coast to look after the combined French and Spanish fleets who were put to sea with the intention of occupying the Channel and assisting in the invasion of England. But British valour and seamanship destroyed their hopes. For on the memorable October 21st, as day began to dawn, a man called from the topmast head, "A sail on the starboard bow!" And in 2 or 3 minutes more he gave another call that there was more than one sail. For indeed they looked like a forest of masts rising from the ocean. And they saw us too, and would have gladly got away when they discovered that we counted 27 sail of the line. But it was too late, hemmed in as they were by the Cape of Trafalgar on the one side, and unable to get back to Cadiz on the other. You know, it seems terrible to say it now, after all the blood, but as we sailed towards him, the enemy seemed to be forming like a double line in the shape of a crescent. And it was a beautiful sight to see our line completed, with the broadsides turned towards us, showing our iron teeth, and occasionally firing a shot so they can ascertain the distance, so they might, if they got within point blank, about 600 yards, open fire upon our van ships. And some of their ships were painted like ourselves, some with yellow on both sides, some with a single red or yellow broad streak, others all black. Well, towards 11, our 2 lines were formed. Then the order came. "All hands clear for action! Ahoy!" The Marines beat to quarters. Bulkheads were knocked away. Guns released from their confinement. The whole paraphernalia of battle was produced. And after the lapse of a few minutes of hurry and confusion, every man and boy stood at his station, ready to do his duty. Well, everything was now in order, like what we call splinter netting, fitted to cover the quarter deck, to receive any blocks that might be shot away aloft. A cask of water hoisted to the main top in preparation of fire. Fires extinguished. Fear-naught screens round the hatchways for passing the powder from the magazines. Guns cast loose and gun spikes for pointing at the guns lying ready at hand on deck. Tompions all ready for a game of thunder. My friend the goat sent down to the cable tier, and the captain's geese and ducks in their coops left to cackle and quack and take their chances. And the doctor's knives, saws, probes, tourniquets, bandages in order in the cockpit. And I devoutly hoping that I'd get blown away altogether rather than he practice his skills upon my limbs or carcass. Every man and boy stood mute at his station, grim in lip and glistening in eye. There was no noise, no laughter. Grim smiles, but no laughter. Men stood pale and stern, hushed. Occasionally they looked through the ports, and I have to tell you, I had difficulty in swallowing. "Stand to your guns!" At last came a peal through the stillness, and the instant change this produced was magical. "Ready the first platoon? Take good aim!" Ready. Aye, everyone was ready. "Captains of the guns, look for the falling of the first shot and point accordingly." Not a word was replied. Then it began. Vroomf! Up went the enemy's lower deck ports, out came their guns, and Firing commenced on us from several ships. But upon being thus pressed, many of the men thought it hard that the firing should all be on one side, and were impatient to return the compliment. But our captain had given orders not to fire until we were close in, so that all our shot might tell.
We shall want all our shot when we are close in. Never mind their firing. When I fire a carronade from the quarterdeck, that will be a signal for you to begin, and I know you will do your duty as Englishmen.
And in a few minutes, our gun was fired. We bore in and broke the line. We passed under a Frenchman's stern and poured in a most destructive broadside. We distinctly heard our shot striking the hull of the enemy, and the carved work above his stern was shattered to pieces. Then, ranging alongside at half a pistol shot distance, we kept up our fire with the most determined spirit. Do you know, just over 2 minutes earlier, everything had been so deathly quiet. Now all was yelling, harangue, leaping, tugging, clattering of ropes, and grumbling of blocks. The noise and din was awful. The grand ship shook and quaked under every discharge from her guns, and the suffocating smell of gunpowder smoke pervaded the whole ship. And as to hearing, well, the guns had so completely deafened us that we were obliged to look only at the motions being made. Soon some of our men were wounded. Well, like Holmes, the captain of my gun. Now, Holmes was a powerful, fine fellow. He had his arm carried away close to the shoulder. I was busily supplying my gun with powder when suddenly I saw blood fly from his arm. I saw nothing strike him, but the effect alone was visible. And soon the cries of the wounded rang through all parts of the ship, and these were carried down to the cockpit as fast as they fell. And those who were more fortunate and were killed outright. I'd never seen a man killed before. A man named Aldrich had his hand blown off, and at the same time a shot tore open his bowels in the most terrible manner. As he fell, 3 men caught him. He could not live, so he was thrown overboard. Then the main mast came down with a terrible crash, and the guns became so heated that when fired they almost kicked the upper deck beams.
Then we got orders from the quarterdeck for all hands to lie down. An enemy 3-decker was coming to rake at us. For me, this was the most awful part of the battle, because we could not defend ourselves from the stern, and here was an immensely powerful ship of upwards of 100 guns coming in to pour a broadside at the weakest part of our ship. It was a moment of great anxiety, and we waited the coming event with silent suspense. At length, to our amazement, the enemy ship only fired a few random shots, but this brought down our disabled foremast. We were now totally mastless and unmanageable. Oh, the confusion that day. Well, the captain was sending everyone everywhere, and one of the gunners became so flurried that when he fired his shot, he failed to observe a Samson post behind him. The gun recoiled and crushed him against it. And throughout this, we kept up our fighting, and I'll tell you something, we were cheering with all our might. Well, I scarce knew for what. There's nothing inspiriting in the aspect of things from where I was stationed. Such was the work of destruction round us, it was termed the slaughtering house. Even the goat, who was kept by the officers for her milk, did not escape the general carnage. Poor Nan's legs were shot, and she was thrown overboard. And it was in this manner that we kept up our fighting and cheering until the battle ceased at nearly 5 o'clock, when we had to go down to the after cockpit and throw the dead overboard. So many men thrown overboard without ceremony, and so many sad wrecks, taught those who, like myself, had never witnessed such scenes, that war was the greatest scourge of mankind. I never wish to witness such scenes again. Could the civilized world behold them, then they would put down forever the barbarous practices of war by universal consent. Well, the first leisure I had, I went down to see the captain of my gun, who, you remember, had lost his arm. Well, he was in very good spirits when I told him of our victory, and this is what he said. Then I don't mind the loss of my arm. I am satisfied. Such was the British valour and seamanship that won the great battle at Trafalgar.